This episode contains discussions around addiction. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Stories of Hope, real honest stories of transformation, brought to you by Junction 42.
Every little thing's gonna be just fine.
On today's episode,
You kind of point your finger and blame your surroundings or blame your family or Glasgow and all this stuff, and not really realising that your four fingers are pointing back to you and your kind of thumbs pointing to God.
Every little thing, everything will be alright.
So welcome to another edition of Stories of Hope. Quite a surreal morning because, as you know, we've been travelling across the country to meet lots of amazing people. And I kind of find myself sat at this really posh, lovely set out table, the sort of table you'd find at a wedding, all the knives and forks in the right places, bottles, nice wine. And then we kind of look out of the window. We're in the middle of an industrial estate. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us. Why are we sat at a table which looks like it is set out for a king in the middle of an industrial estate?
I suppose the real reason is I own Regis Banqueting Limited. We're an event-based catering company based in Cumbernauld in Scotland, which is just outside Glasgow, if you're not familiar with it. We travel all over Scotland and North England doing kind of events ranging from weddings, product launches for the likes of Bentley, Rolex, do some catering for Glasgow University, different businesses. We did 500 weddings this year. So yeah, we're pretty well travelled. So hence this is you in the tasting room. So we try to create what it looks like in one of these big fancy castles or country estates here in the back end of Cumbernauld in the industrial estate.
It hasn't always been this way. Your journey started off quite different, didn't it?
For sure, yep. So I certainly had a misspent youth and decided to start taking drugs from really kind of the age of 16 to 20 every day. To fund that, I started to sell drugs. I was quite good at that, but I did take more. The more I sold, the more I took. Came to a bit of a head. In 1999, I was kind of like, I need to do something different, and I was kind of in Scotland. Life was kind of no going anywhere, and I thought either become a big time drug dealer, which meant having to owe people lots of money, and you couldn't set up payment plans if somebody bumped you. I really decided I needed to get away, and it's funny because you kind of point your finger and blame your surroundings or blame your family or blame everything, and I was kind of saying all the problems Glasgow and all this stuff, and not really realising that your four fingers are pointing back to you and your kind of thumbs pointing to God, and really for me at that point it was like, I'm going to go to New Zealand, the furthest place away from Scotland, sun, sea, sand, beautiful women, get off all the hard drugs, everything will be wonderful. So that was my great plan, but basically me and my wisdom decided to take 100 ecstasy tablets with me and actually get caught importing them. I really was just reckless, if I'm honest with you, but I remember I cut out the inside, the book by Mr. Nice, he was kind of a notorious drug dealer, put basically the tablets in that and then kind of posted it and thought the tin foil and that would cover the x-ray machine, but obviously didn't.
We've been doing a whole series of this Stories of Hope, and we spoke to loads of wonderful people who have started out life, made some bad choices. Some of those people were kind of almost like born into that. Am I right in saying that you had kind of quite a loving family unit?
Yeah, I did. My mum wrote me a letter, and I'll always remember she said in it, I love you now, and I've always loved you, even in your darkest hour. I think that's something that's really stood the test of time. I've got two brothers. My younger brother struggled with drugs and different things, but my mum and dad have always loved us and supported us, and I think...
Good, honest, real people.
Aye, totally, and we'd always do anything to help you, and my dad certainly has done that when I didn't want that, and I thought I knew better and kind of pushed them away. They still remained loving and there for us and try to support us in any way they could.
I guess the natural thing is you want to jump in and you want to save them and you want to pull them out of that and you want to do everything you can, and sometimes even that probably isn't enough.
Yeah, and I think they did everything they could, and I suppose, I can't speak for my mum and dad, but I do know that you do struggle with different things, I could have done something different, was it my fault, and all these kind of things, but I think people have got their own choices, everybody's got their own decisions, and it's up to us, that we can make decisions, and some people have maybe had a different background for me, but actually every person is responsible for their own decisions and choices, and we can't blame our circumstances, our family or whatever. We need to take responsibility for our own lives and our own choices, and I think that's a real gift that sometimes people take for granted or don't really value.
What was the turning point for you? Like,
I had never been brought up going to church or a Christian or God or anything like that, and I'd went with a girl, although it'd been a bit backwards and forwards and we'd kind of cheated on each other, but her dad was a practicing Catholic, and I kind of told her I'd been caught importing drugs, and she says, I'll pray for you, you should pray. And I thought, I think you need to go inside hen and get your head sorted out. What is that going to do?
Says the man who imported drugs through it with a book, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I think at that moment she'd said that, and I thought, I'd never ever considered God or thought about God or anything like that. But that night, because I was out in bail in New Zealand, so I basically had to give my passport, and I had to go to the police station a few times a kind of week and stuff like that. And I got down beside my bed at night, and I prayed a prayer. I get down, maybe you've prayed, other people have prayed, or people haven't prayed, but I didn't really know. So I thought prayers like you kind of get down and you kneel. So I really knelt down at the side of my bed and I prayed this prayer. I says, I don't believe there is a God, but if you're real, show me you're real. My life's a mess. Got up the next day, nothing had changed. I was like, I've done that, got a t-shirt, lot of rubbish, continued taking drugs. I was partying on the Saturday night in New Zealand. My life was out of control, I remember it was a big fancy apartment block, 6 or 7 stories up, looking over the ocean, a place called Mount Maunganui. So kind of partied there all night, and then I was going back to where I was staying in New Zealand the Sunday morning, and I was driving back. It was 10 o'clock on the Sunday morning. There was these 2 beautiful girls. I mean, it was lashing of rain like what you get in Glasgow, and they're hitchhiking, and they just prayed the next car that goes by is going to stop and gives a lift to church. So I see these 2 beautiful girls hitchhiking. I was like, yeah, dancer, don't get us in going a Sunday morning. So I picked them up. Basically, they're like, going to church, you want to come? And I'm like, F off, that's for fruitcakes. I don't know what that's kind of going to do. So anyway, we ended up arriving at this car park, and it was a hotel. And they're saying, look, you sure you don't want to come in, come to church? I'm saying, I don't really know MD, but I suppose 2 beautiful girls invite me in. I said, what's the worst can happen? So I went in, and my idea of church was like chapel, old people with woolly jumpers and all that. But I went in, and there was like a band with guitars and kind of young people with their hands up. And I'm thinking, this is a bit weird. Ended up at church then basically saying, look, we're going for lunch, you want to come with us? And basically kind of through that, told them my story, being caught with drugs, waiting to go to jail and all this stuff. They're saying, look, we really believe that God can change your life and God's got a plan for your life and stuff. And they asked me to say this prayer. And it was basically a prayer asking Jesus to come into my life. And I remember halfway through it, I'm thinking, God, I thank you sent your son Jesus to die on the cross, that he rose for the dead. And I'm thinking, I don't even believe that. It's a lot of rubbish, But the Bible says if you believe in your heart and confess your mouth, things can change, And really at that moment, I asked God into my life. Now, I didn't really believe it or understand it, but all I can say, it was like a veil had been lifted off my eyes. Because up until that point, I maybe wanted to stop taking drugs because I realised they were destroying my life and those around us, but I would always sell them because I seen the value in them. But the drugs I'd on is, I actually seen for the first time that all they were doing were destroying my life and those around me, and actually they had no value. And I went through them in the ocean. It was like this veil had been lifted off my eyes. At last I could see the reality of that. So I done that, and then those girls basically said, look, we want to help you get off drugs, come and stay with me, And I remember in their house thinking I could do anything, that I'm thinking they're either off the planet and this is just mental, or there's something in this, And really that was the catalyst for the change really in my life, and started to go on this journey of encountering and experiencing a God that loved me and had a plan for my life, And I know that can be a bit heavy and people think, oh, that's for them, and I don't believe that, it's not for me, but that was certainly the thing that was the catalyst for change for me.
Isn't it amazing that even though you kind of were not in that place and you're thinking this is maybe a load of rubbish, the fact that God still listened to that young lad just going, I just need help. And I guess it's not even really the words that you say, it's what's in the heart, I guess. You could have been driving along that road at any time, but at that precise point, those 2 Christian girls, those 2 believers who then basically went, do you want to go to church? That is incredible. And it for me, it gives, I don't know about you, but I think anyone who's listening to this, it should give them hope that actually God is always interested regardless of who you are or the circumstances that you're in.
Definitely. And I think people say, oh, it's just a coincidence and all the different stuff. And at the end of the day, I know for me, I really believe that there can be God instances and things that you don't even realise or know, but I think for me, there was this cry from my heart that I wanted a different life. I didn't really know what that looked like, but I just knew what I had wasn't cutting it for us, and I knew that I felt in a hopeless situation, and I felt as though I needed to do something different, but I didn't know what that different looked like, you know, and that was certainly the thing for change for me.
Did you know what the outcome of the sentence might be?
So I'd obviously got previous convictions and stuff, and somebody got caught with double the amount of me and get 4 years. So I was kind of expecting a couple of years, you know, and I think my lawyer had set me up for that. And that was in my mindset, you know, because I think at that time I was taking lots of drugs, and you don't think it's a lot, but I suppose it's an importation, you know, it was a fair amount, you know, in the eyes of the law and stuff. But I remember going to the court, and I'll never forget, there was lots of people, you know, for the kind of church I was involved with at this point, and they'd taken their days off work to really support and encourage us. And it was like people with proper jobs, you know. And I was thinking, this is mental. And they were really encouraging me, praying with me and stuff. And I remember going up, getting called into the dock, and I was standing there and I had this big smile on my face, and I'm thinking, this judge is going to think I'm at it. But for the first time in my life, I realised that freedom isn't about being on or off drugs or in or out of prison. Freedom's about being free in your heart and free in your soul, you know. And I knew, even if I'd got a life sentence, that my life was going to be all right, you know, because I had this hope that somehow it was all going to work out. And I remembered, you know, and it was actually the first time ever in New Zealand's history had been a deferred sentence for importation. So I got a 12-month suspended sentence in community service. And I really believe that I honoured God and he honoured me, you know, and it really built faith in me, you know, and I really believe there was a real miracle there.
At what point did you decide to leave New Zealand and to come back home?
Yeah, so they basically revoked my work visa and I had to leave.
When you've been away somewhere and you come back, you kind of expect change. You look around and sometimes you go, oh, everything's the same here. Was it a bit like that for you when you came back?
You know, I'd been back probably about kind of 2 years, and I went and visited old friends I used to hang out with. It was the same house, same people sitting doing the same thing, taking the same drugs, and the only difference was they were playing a PlayStation 2 instead of a PlayStation 1, you know, and it was like, in a moment, you actually realise that so easily we can get lost, and before you know it, you've lost 5, 10, 15 years, do you know what I mean? Because you're just consumed with whatever it is that you're into, you know, and so happened to them, it was drugs, you know, and it was just like sucking the life out of them, you know, and there was no change, you know.
So I guess you had a decision to make. Do I go back to my old ways or do I keep pushing forward?
I was very fortunate that obviously I kind of became a Christian in New Zealand. There was this kind of season, I think I was probably there about 7-8 months, allowed kind of time of change and developing. And when I did come back to Scotland, I was settled, you know. I think really at that moment I'd made the decision that I was going to live this different life, you know, and I was really going to make my life count, and I was going to be a success, and I was going to do all these things, you know, and I think that was really important for me to do that. And I think I'd made that decision, so it was quite easy, you know, and I knew that I was never going back to the way I'd been, you know. I'd actually seen this, you know, and I think it's like what I was saying, it was like this veil had been lifted, and it's hard to describe, you know, but all of a sudden the grass just seemed greener, you know, and it's like, it's so hard to explain, and if people haven't had that, sometimes you can't get your head round it or understand, or how could that make such a difference, but it really did for me, and I just knew that this life that I was living now was the life I was going to live, and I had really had this encounter with a God that loved me, and I really truly believed that he was real and he had a plan for my life, and I wanted to walk in that now, you know.
I always say, it's like, imagine having all of your issues, your money problems, your relationship issues, you know, the worst of the worst, and then someone coming along and going, actually, I'll sort that for you. Pass it all here. I'll deal with it. And you're going, are you sure? Yeah, I'll sort it. And you're like, all right, well, what do I do? Talk to me. You know, I'll just let you know how things are going, but don't worry about it. You just go and live life. And like, then suddenly it's like, we don't even need to go, oh, how are you getting on with that stuff? It's like, no, don't worry about it. I think that's the best analogy that someone's given me. Like, it's like, pass it here. You know, I'll sort it.
I think probably for me, there was a moment where I realised for the first time in my life there was somewhere I could take all the shame or the guilt or the lying or the cheating. I suppose the weight of all the bad decisions I'd done, you know, and actually there was a place that I could actually leave that, you know, and that was really a chance to do that through having faith, you know, that really had an encounter with Jesus, and I was able to leave that there. And I think it can be difficult, because I think particularly nowadays, you know, everybody wants everything at instant, you know, they want instant gratification, they want to be a millionaire, they want to be a footballer, they want to be a YouTuber, they want to be a TikToker, whatever it is, everybody wants this thing instant, you know. And what I would say is that it wasn't a case of God waving a magic wand and everything was sorted, you know, but I realised that there was somewhere that I could leave my old life and actually I could have a new life, you know, and that's what I would say. There is tough times, there is challenges, there is ups and downs, you know, but I think it's actually having this outlook and this mindset and this thing that I've actually got a new life now, and really you value that, you know, because you realise where you were. For me, I don't wake up now and think, oh, I can't take drugs today. That's not in my mindset. You know, I do have different battles and different struggles, but that's not what I think, you know, and I think it's important that as you start to walk in this different life and you start to get hope, then you start to live in a different way and you look and you experience different things that are just incredible. Do you know, I need to pinch myself sometimes, you know, it's like I've been able to meet the King of the Commonwealth, you know, King Charles. I've served him food, I've done events for him, met Gordon Ramsay, met loads of famous people, done things, you know, it's like that are just incredible, you know, but actually it all started with that moment of change to actually leave my old life and find this new life, you know, and that's what I would really say, that so many people are doing the same things and expecting different results and it never happens, you know, and that's always what I would say to people that find themselves in a tricky situation, in a bad situation, or made some wrong choices. If you continue making those same choices, you're not going to change, you know, and actually change comes by doing something different, you know, and that's really how I've done it, and I really made a decision that I wasn't ever going to go back on that.
Tell us a little bit about your business and how this came around.
So when I came back from New Zealand, it was the early 2000s. So for those that are a similar age to me, I'm 44, will remember train spotting and the likes. So it was really, I suppose it get glorified at that moment. It was like, this is trendy, this is cool, you know, and really people watched it. It was like, oh, this is exciting, this is brilliant, you know. And I suppose when I came back kind of 2000, 2001, the reality of addiction and depravity and the mess that was leaving had really found people in a real lot of problems, you know, particularly in kind of Glasgow where I'm from and stuff, the west of Scotland. There was a real rippy addiction, you know, and there was families being lost and ripped apart with all this stuff. And I'd read a book by a woman called Jackie Pullinger called Chasing the Dragon. This was a young girl who'd left kind of the UK, just went onto a ship in the 60s. She ended up over in the walled city in Hong Kong, and she really just wanted to help the kind of addicts, and she was a woman of faith, and she really just started this kind of thing and seen many triad gang members find freedom, get off drugs and do different stuff, you know, and it was just a mad, exciting adventure that she was on, you know, and I'd read this and I thought, if she can do that, we can do that here in Scotland, you know, and I really ended up getting a flat, got people to come in, praying with them, helped them get off heroin. It was just incredible, seeing many lives changed, impacted, and we did that through a church that I was part in. We started a charity called Free for Life, because we're sending lots of people away to rehabs and stuff, which was great and brilliant, but they were always struggling to get integrated back into society. So we thought, if we can really tackle this when people are living, they can be a positive member of the community, they can be back integrated into their family and all this sort of stuff, and really repair the damage that was caused. And then kind of the Care Commission, the council came and said, no, you can't do this, you know what I mean? You can't have non-medicated detoxes and all that, because we were getting people coming in on 120 ml of meth and saying, right, you know what I mean, this is abstinence, you're not getting nothing, do you know what I mean? It was chaos, do you know, but it was awesome. I mean, I remember somebody being there for about 3 or 4 days and then had me at knife point and taking me to the ATM to go and get money out so he could go and get hit, do you know, and I realised the reality of that.
Very naive.
Very naive, but that's what it is, because that's all you're thinking. If you're a heroin addict, all you're thinking about is getting a tenner, getting a bag, having a hit. And it's just this cycle. All you want is a tenner, a hit, and wherever you're at, you know, and I really understood this. And so it came to an end through kind of funding things and stuff. So I thought, how can I help the poor if I'm poor? Do you know, I'm going to start a business, and really also to give people into employment, because we'd seen lots of people get off drugs doing great, but they were struggling to get employment because of their kind of history and stuff. So really, I decided to start Regis Banqueting Limited. An opportunity kind of arose. A wee bit at the time, I had a bit of inspiration for Jamie Oliver. He'd kind of 15, which was basically a kind of restaurant he had down in kind of Cornwall. Disadvantaged people for kind of to get them into the hospitality business, get them in and really just nurture them and stuff. So I decided to start a business, and really that's kind of how it started.
Why food? Was it just the Jamie Oliver thing, or did you have a passion for it previously, or what was that about?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved food. I've always loved eating food. I've always had this passion, you know, and I think it's important to know what your passions are, you know, and to really try and pursue that. And if you can make a living for something that you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life, you know. And I think for me, I was always passionate about food. There was an opportunity. So the kind of church I went to, and they had a kind of cafe that was running, but it wasn't really making any money. And kind of they said, look, why don't you take that on? You can run it, also do outside catering from it, and then kind of build a business. So it was really just a wee kind of opportunity came, you know, and just kind of seized it. And I think it's important to use what's in your hand, really, do you know, because sometimes it's all right for him if he's at a university, his mum and dad's get money or whatever it is, you know. But I remember for me, so at the start, my sister-in-law, she came on, became part of the business. She was a Miss Scotland to him. She's from African descent. So we used to just send her around all the businesses, you know, and even when it said no cold calling and stuff, we would always let her come in. So what I would say is you just need to use what you've got and make the most of it, you know, and that's certainly what we did in the early days.
How do you toe that line of giving people opportunities who would never fit in this normal workplace and allowing them to make mistakes, but not allowing it to be to the detriment of the business?
I think it's hard at times, and sometimes I get it wrong. If I'm honest with you, you know, sometimes you are a bit soft, you know, because you want to end. But I think that's with all business and all people, because we all go through different things, you know, even if you've no came from that kind of background, you know, that people go through challenges in different times in life, you know, whether that be, you know, we've had staff that have suffered as a business owner, and as a business, you need to support these people through the challenges in life. And that's what we've always tried to do. But again, there's got to be a place when somebody does cross the line, you say, no, actually, if that's more detrimental, because you're always thinking, I need to look after the 150, do you know, I need to be considerate of the business and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you will get people that will take advantage, you know what I mean? And you think, goodness me, and it can be hurtful, you know, but it's just so good when somebody does respond in a positive manner. You know, I've got a girl now that's a supervisor, worked with us for over 10 years, you know, and came from a kind of troubled background, all the different things. And I remember it was like really touch and go whether she was going to make it, you know, and I remember we gave her kind of last final chance. And I remember she came in and she was crying. She's like, thank you so much for no sacking me. And, you know, and she's really just progressed amazingly, you know, and that for me is so rewarding to actually see the development of that person and to actually say that we've actually played a part in that. Yeah, it's been her decisions and her choices, you know, but actually willing to go the extra mile. And I remember one time we were right up against it, you know, and she worked right throughout the night, do you know what I mean? 24-hour shifts, do you know what I mean? It was like, and I'll never forget that, do you know what I mean? But actually, she wouldn't have done that when she just started, but actually she grew and developed as a person and somebody, a character, to actually say, do you know what I mean? I'm willing to go the extra mile, do you know, and that's been for me the greatest privilege and honour and joy to sharing that. Do you know, there has been other moments when it's not been like that and it's been painful and hurtful, but it's worth it and I wouldn't change that for anything.
If there's someone listening to this now who's in the same situation as you, who's looking at their life going, I have messed my life up here. What am I going to do? How am I going to move forward? How do I get myself out of this place? What advice would you give them?
It's never all over until it's all over. It's no, do you know, there's always hope, do you know, and I think it's how do you get out of that hopelessness, do you know, because that is probably the biggest challenge and the biggest scourge, to be fair, now across the UK, is that people feel hopeless. I've always had that kind of thing, don't let your past define your future, do you know, and whatever's happened in the past, yeah, you can have mistakes, it could have went horribly wrong, but your future doesn't need to be defined by your past. And that's really what I would say, is that there is a way out. Do you know, it's just trying to find it and trying to know that things can change and they will change. It's about what's going on inside rather than what's going on outside. Do you know, people are so worried about their situation, their circumstances, do you know, and really what's going on inside your heart is really where life is or life isn't, you know, and that's what I would say is really get yourself right in yourself and then things will start to change externally.
This has been a UCB podcast in partnership with Junction 42. Find out more about Junction 42 at their website, junction42.org, and make sure you subscribe to the show to hear a new episode every Tuesday.